Just letting you know I'm currently watching Sky Racing on the Sportsbet app live from Square Leg. No, they won't catch him. He's home. Oh, sorry. Watch Aussie Racing anywhere with Sportsbet. Conditions apply and gamble responsibly. 1-800-858-858.
A man who is definitely not on Tinder is my next guest, but he's been busy. Chris Davies is the GM of football. CD, I've got a bit of an issue. Someone set up a fake Tinder profile of myself, and I've had a bit of explaining to do as we welcome you in on that note.
A fake Tinder account, goodness me. No, never something that I've had a look at. But I understand that it's a good thing for the modern day player.
Yes, okay. I'm sure you've had a couple of players that may have been on Tinder and using some advice on how to tackle the new way of social media. Hey, CD, let's straighten up a little bit because you landed a player yesterday. Jeremy Finlayson, 3-year deal. You're going to give up, you gave up a future third-round pick. Can you explain how you think he helps Port Adelaide next year?
Well, it certainly help our depth from a forward line perspective. I mean, it's not very often that you're able to get a player in who's kicked 40-plus goals at AFL level in a season for obviously what we gave up. So from that perspective, depth at our club and competition for spots is a good thing. Obviously, Jeremy has the added ability to be able to go into the ruck and perform a role there for us as well. So, look, if nothing else, he goes into a mix of a forward line that, we've got Charlie who's obviously getting older. We've got a couple of younger developing key forwards. I think that Jeremy can come in and certainly provide some real competition for spots up there.
Mm. Yeah, I wasn't sure at the start. I was like, he's not really a player that you need. Then you hear about Laddams and Dixon's age. I don't hate the deal, I've got to be honest, but it wasn't a pressing need. I thought that the discussions around the Giants seemed pretty smooth and they almost seemed happy to let him be a little bit closer to family in South Australia, CD.
Yeah, I mean, I think in fairness, our club and GWS, have a good relationship. Once we got to a point where I think there was agreement that GWS were going to let him explore his options, that things went pretty smoothly from there. We try and be a club that gets deals done, that doesn't hold players up unnecessarily. And I think in fairness, most clubs who deal with us think they get a reasonable outcome, as do we. There's no point going into a trade period wanting to win every deal. That's not the way that you get things done. It's certainly not the way that you maintain relationships across the competition. So we're happy to fight hard, but at the end of the day, you've got to get a win for all parties, including the player.
So that being said, I guess the discussion around Peter Laddams, I've heard two versions. I've heard your version that it was Pete that sort of put it on the agenda. I've heard other reports that it was the club that almost encouraged him to look around and explore perhaps some more opportunity. Is the truth somewhere in the middle?
I think the truth is always somewhere in the middle, isn't it, Kane? The reality of Pete's situation is that we don't think we can provide him right now the spot that he wants to specifically play in. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't think that Pete is a really good player and has an opportunity to continue to progress at our club. It's more about what we think both parties need right now. Suggesting that someone can explore their options and suggesting that someone should, they're two different things. And I hope that people can understand that. Allowing someone to actually explore doesn't necessarily mean that you've pushed them out the door. And it certainly doesn't mean that you're committed to doing a deal down the track. If we were to get to a point where Pete decided that he wanted to go, then clearly the club is going to have to be able to get some compensation that is going to mean that we're happy to do the deal based on his current contractual status. Now, that will play out over the next week, clearly. But I don't think anyone needs to think that this isn't an amicable situation. We've got another player on our list who, is in the same sort of situation right now who has played, and this is Sam Powell-Pepper, I'm sure you're going to talk about him, who, wants more midfield time. Now, we think that we've got some other players who we'd like to throw into that mix as well. So on the basis that Sam was out of our team at the end of the year, and that he played mostly as a forward this year, we've given him the opportunity to have that look as well. It doesn't mean that a deal's going to get done, but if it does, then at least we're all on the same page. And I think it's actually important that you leave your exit interviews with some clarity around the roles that you think players can play.
So do I. So that being said, and your opening remarks about Finlayson and it's not always, fighting to get the best possible deal that you can, I find Peter Laddams hard to value. Now, clearly, you as a club, which is your right to do, value him higher than maybe some others. He's 23-year-old ruckman who was in a prelim final team, a very good team. So where does his value lie then, CD, and what's acceptable compensation should a club show interest?
Well, I think ultimately the market will determine that. We think that, as you say, he's a player who's contracted, who's the club has put a significant amount of development time into. We think he can. He's going to be a good player, whether it's at our club or at another club. So, from our perspective, we'd like to get as much as we can out of any potential deal. But at the same time, we also know that the market will determine as to what any player is actually worth. We've suggested at the moment that we'd like to get as much as we possibly can out of any deal for both Peter and Sam if it comes to it. But at the same time, I think the history of what we do would suggest that if there's a deal to be done, that we're open-minded to what it looks like.
And we'll wait and see on that. Now that you've got Finlayson, it's probably unlikely that he stays. That's just my view on it. Wait and see how it plays out. And Sam Powell-Pepper, what's the interest been like in him, CD?
I think there's interest from a couple of places. Obviously, teams who are looking for that type of player who might be able to provide him with more midfield time than what we think he's going to get with our club. Again, that's not to say that we don't see Sam developing and continuing to get better, but each individual player has got to look at their own circumstances. So look, I'd be surprised right now. Put it this way, Kona, we're not thinking that either of those players is going to go, and that won't be a bad thing for our club. They're both people who we think are going to have a role to play at our club next year. So for them to leave, we would need to be getting something that we think is going to be beneficial to the club, both in the short and long term.
Chris, thanks so much for your time, mate, and the update.
No worries. Thank you.
Chris Davies, the GM of football at Port Adelaide. He's an absolute ripper. Straight as they come. It's 6 minutes to 10.
Trade Radio is proudly supported by Host Plus, the official superannuation partner of the AFL. Having a top performer on your side, that's a plus.
This is general advice only. Consider the relevant Host Plus PDS available at hostplus.com.au before deciding if Host Plus is appropriate for you. For a description of the target market, please read the Target Market Determination, TMD, available at hostplus.com.au. Past performance is not a reliable indicator of future performance.